Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you had told me that the people who made Top Coat F11 came out with a new product and they said that product had something called Triphene in it, I would tell you that I'm probably working on my next Wolfstar video because I wouldn't believe a thing you said. But here we are, and it's not a Wolfstar video. I had a viewer reached out to me, mentioned this, and actually sent it to me. So this was sent to me by a viewer. I didn't buy it because it's quite expensive and it seems to be US only, and the costs to get up here are kind of ridiculous. But I'm glad they did, and I'm glad I have it because I've been playing around with this for the last at least 2 months. I wanted to really make sure I didn't misspeak because I wanted to make sure that what I was seeing was real and that it was lasting, because from what I've seen so far, and I haven't done a ton, I've just done a little and then observed, this is not, so far as I can tell, a scam. I don't know what Triphene is. There's no SDS sheet for this, so there's not even a hint of what's inside it. But it works. I don't know if it's a good value. That's for you to decide. For me, it's not a good value. But I don't want to get too far into it because I've got some footage of tests I've run. But I will, after the footage, we'll break down sort of what you were watching, because it is a blind test, because I think with this kind of history behind this product and some of the things it's talking about, it's really good to go into this one not knowing what section is this product. There's 3 other products with it. It's just a chemical test with built Hamber autofoam at 2%, the same stuff we use for ranked reviews. That's all I've done for this, but I have used it in the real world on a couple cars that I have been able to actually somewhat monitor like how it's performing. So we'll get into that after watching the footage, but for now we'll get into the test panel. It was added. Panel was polished and prepped and all that kind of crap. Given a week to cure, and then hit with the chemicals, you know, same as ranked review. So we're not doing anything different there. It's sort of the norm for this channel. I haven't run this through ranked yet because it kind of sits in multiple categories and I wasn't sure what to do. But I have used it in a lot of different methods. So I have some advice about using it and how to use it and which way I've found works the best. So you can, you know, observe that for yourself or not. I don't have footage of all of that, but you can take my anecdotal opinion or not. But I have used it in a couple different ways, 3 different ways. Clearly there is 1 really bad one and 2 better, although 1 is, I think, the best way to use it. But that's enough rambling. Let's get into the footage and we'll meet back here for the conclusion. Okay, so you've seen the test footage, we did the washes, you saw some products do really well, some products not. And there's 3 other products in there with this product. I'm not going to put them up here on the table, but I'll put the names on the screen. So looking at the test panel, so looking at the footage, the far left was Pirouette from Fireball. As you can see in the footage, it did really, really well. I didn't think it dropped an ounce of its performance through that whole test. If it did, smidge. So really good showing there. Next to it was ADBL's synthetic spray wax. That one dropped off quite a bit, which is different than what I got in rank reviews. But again, run-to-run variance, you know, if you really wanted to get the true actual performance out of a product in this type of testing, like the length you'd have to go to is to probably run the test 10 times and then average out the performance. That's realistically the best way to do it, but we just do it once and then see how it goes. And, you know, different panels, different sort of conditions, whatever. But yeah, for ranked reviews, the performance of ADBL was better than I got in this test. That could be down to the application. Who knows what? It's probably the application, but you know, in this test, you know, with trying to put it on properly, I didn't get the same results. So yeah, take that for what it's worth. But again, that's variables. That's what happens. So next to that, in the middle right side of the screen, was Maxl, which didn't start off like super crazy hydrophobic, but it really stuck around. It didn't drop off too much. It did a lot better than ADBL. And next to that on the far side was Parla, which, as we know, is one of the most chemically resistant products we've run through ranked. It doesn't start at a really high level, but it just stays there. So, and that and Maxl seem to be pretty even, pretty close to one another. But yeah, so those products were put on the dot panel on May 31st, and that footage was done on June 7th. So that was over a month ago, but I have been busy. But I first started playing with this on a test panel on May 11th. I put it on a panel next to Armor Detail Supply's Amplify, because this is kind of a quick detailer and a sealant in one, and Amplify is an example of one of those ceramic detailers that is just really stout and adds a lot of protection for what it is. I don't have the footage. I deleted it. That's why I had to redo this test with the other competitors, because I accidentally deleted it when I deleted a whole bunch of footage from a whole bunch of videos that I really wish I didn't. You know, you'll have to take my word for it, but this wiped the floor with Amplify in that test. Same conditions, same Biltong bottle foam 2%, and you know, working it in with the brush. Different panel, but yeah, just putting those two on there, the Maxl beat it. So that was interesting. So I think Pirouette, overall had the highest hydrophobics and the least drop in performance, but Maxl wasn't far behind in its drop. I don't think it dropped much at all. It was kind of on par with Parla, but it isn't cheap. I'll put the prices on screen because there's varying sizes and they'll be in US. So Canadian folks, if you want to go on the website and plug in your address and see how much you're going to get bent over, go for it. But it's not a great price. But yeah, so application wise, I've used this 3 different ways. I've done the typical dry application, which I think honestly is probably the best as far as amount of product used, which you can see I've used half this bottle already almost. And it's very, very slick. It's very slick on the wipe. It can be a little hard to wipe off. Using it sparingly for sure. Like, you don't need a lot of this product when you're using it dry. But it is very slick on wipe off, and once you do get it wiped off, it's not the worst out there, but it's not great. It's pretty slick and it seems to darken it quite a bit, but I haven't done any testing on filling and stuff like that, so I'm reserving judgment until I run it through ranked, essentially, which I guess I'll do now because it seems to be quite stout, so I think I can qualify it as a spray sealant. So I haven't checked that, but the cars I've applied it to got very, very glossy looking and rich and dark. A lot of jetting effect, let's put it that way. The The next best way to apply it is a drying aid, but it has a really weird behavior. When you spray it on a panel, like the cars I use this on were not maintained. They had not been clayed, they had not had decon. I'd hit them up with auto foam or touchless, one of the two, I can't remember what. And then wash them and then put this on. One of them I dried and put it on, one of them I use as a drying aid. But the first one I tried putting it on wet, I tried to do spray and rinse, and that didn't work at all. It used a whole bunch of product and it barely did anything. The drying aid is a far better method. You use less, it does a better job. But the weird behavior it has as a drying aid is wherever you spray it, like if you do a mist and you've got that circle, that spray pattern, anything in that pattern dries off beautifully and it gets nice and glossy and it gets slick right away. But you cannot spread it to an outlying area. So say if you spray it here and you wipe it and then you try and push up here with whatever residues on your towel, that water doesn't come off and the product doesn't transfer to it. It sticks here, and wherever it lands in that area, that radius, is where it works, and everywhere else it doesn't. So it's very weird. It means you do use more as a drying aid than something that spreads around. But it does work. It does make the panel hydrophobic, and the hydrophobic performance as a drying aid is pretty good. It's not quite as good as dry, but it's almost there. And the dry performance is pretty high. So it's an interesting product. I definitely came into this with an idea of how this was going to go, but the open mind going, prove me wrong. And they kind of did. I don't want to talk about the whole Triphene thing because there's no SDS. There's no hope of figuring out what the hell's inside this. It has a vinegary scent, and it's a lot of ceramic-y type sprays sort of have, like, what reminds me of this would be like Wowo's Crystal Sealant, for example. It's a white, milky, sort of a vinegary scent, but this just seems more concentrated, if that makes sense. But Wowo's was pretty good, and they weren't far off, but this one just seems a little heavier, if I had to remember correctly. But yeah, it's an interesting product. I don't think it's worth the money, especially if you don't live in the United States. It's absolutely probably not worth the money. But it isn't garbage. It is not a scam. Considering where they've come from, which was Top Coat F11, or F11 Top Coat, however it's pronounced, you would think this is terrible, but it's not. Genuinely, it's not bad. I just don't think the value is there. And the trigger's kind of cheap, and, you know, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like, if you think it's worthwhile, I mean, it definitely works. It definitely applies to the paint. And I got to follow up those two cars that I used it as a drying aid and a dry application on. And it was still working a couple months later. They were still really clean and glossy, and they were still hydrophobic. So far from the experience I have with it, which is limited and not closely monitored, I will admit, it does seem to work. It does seem to last. So credit where credit's due. This stuff isn't a scam. Maybe they got it out of their system and they actually tried this time, and they're just, you know, they're putting the price tag really high up because maybe they actually think it really works this time. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. It does last. It does sort of do what it says on the tin. The Triphene thing, who knows? I'm not reaching out for comment. You know, how am I going to prove otherwise? I don't know. But yeah, interesting product. You know, if you want to have a punt, there's a small size. This guy here, I think it's a 9 ounce. If you really wanted to give it a punt, you could try it out. But if you've got a product you already like, I don't think it's worth the cost. So yeah, that's it for this one. It's an interesting product. I was very shocked when the person reached out and didn't really, they teased me too. They didn't tell me anything about what they thought. They just said, I don't know, man, it's interesting. And so, yeah, you were right. It is interesting. But yeah, anyway, that's it for this one. Some more fun and interesting ones coming up. Yeah, that's all for now. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.